Hello everyone, myself Dr. Pratishtha Rao, DNB Ops and Gynae. Today I am going to discuss very small lecture topic, that is pelvic organ prolapse quantification system. Actually I am not going very in detail about the prolapse or anything else. I am only going to discuss about the pelvic organ prolapse quantification system, and that too about only the specifically where we face the difficulties, about the 3x3 grid, which is very difficult to understand and analyze, and in which way it is important. Why are we really bothered about this system? Because we should first understand the system first, then we can draw the inference from that. If we don't understand, we don't know what to do with the findings. So that is the purpose why I am discussing about this today. So prior to discussing about the pelvic organ prolapse quantification system, briefly I want to discuss the anatomy of the pelvic floor muscles. So here the diagram is given, and in this diagram it's clearly showing the puborectalis, pubococcygeus and iliococcygeus muscles. Now we are going to discuss about these muscles. These three muscles together form the levator ani muscle. So what is the function of the levator ani muscle? Major function is it supports the pelvic visceral structure. So we are talking about the prolapse. So if there is any defect at this muscle or detachment or attachment of this muscle, there comes the problem. There comes the prolapse. And what is arcus tendinous fascia pelvis? We know the word since our undergraduate, since when we are from undergraduate. So the arcus tendinous fascia pelvis is nothing but a tendinous structure which arises just superior to the pubourethral ligament. In this picture, you can see just before the bladder, arcus tendinous fascia pelvis. We all know about the pubourethral ligament. It arises on either side of the pubic symphysis from the pubic bone, and it circles around the urethra. It gives support to the urethra. We know about the pubourethral ligament. So the arcus tendinous fascia pelvis, it arises just superior to the pubourethral ligament at the pubic symphysis, and it inserts into the ischial spines. So this is what we should know in clear. I'll say you why it is important when we are talking about the pelvic organ prolapse quantification system, and then what is the function of this arcus tendinous fascia pelvis. On this arcus tendinous fascia pelvis, the vagina is suspended much like a sheath slung across two washing lines. It means that this gives support to the vaginal walls. So this is what important for us. Yes. Another structure is arcus tendinous levator ani. Yes, this is also a tendinous structure. In this image, you can clearly see the blue line, the dotted blue line is arcus tendinous levator ani, which is extending from the pubic rami. I repeat it. It is extending from the pubic rami to the ischial spine. Whereas the arcus tendinous fascia pelvis, in this image you can see it as a dotted yellow line. It extends from the pubic symphysis on either side of the pubic symphysis on two sides up to the ischial spine. So these are the important tendinous structures before talking to the pelvic organ prolapse quantification system. So in this image we can see together the muscles and the ligaments. So the muscles, the levator ani or the levator plate. In this picture, LP is the levator plate. It is holding all the viscera. It is giving support to all the viscera. The rectum, the vagina the bladder and the urethra. So to all these structures it is giving support. Then arcus tendinous fascia pelvis is also shown in this picture. So this is ligaments and the muscles all together, how they are supporting the viscera. So let us also talk about the Delancey level of support for a minute. How this is relevant here, I will discuss it later. When we are talking about the pelvic organ prolapse quantification system, why are we talking about the Delancey level of support? You will come to know later. So we all know there are three levels of support according to Delancey. Level 1 is cardinal and uterosacral ligament support. Level 2 includes pubocervical fascia anteriorly, rectovaginal fascia posteriorly, levator ani muscle. As I previously described all these things about the levator ani muscle and also the tendinous fascia pelvis. So they together contribute to the level 2 support, and the level 3 support is with perineal membrane and urogenital diaphragm. Yes. Now here comes the POPQ classification. This image now we are seeing, it's very familiar. We all know this image, and to be frank, yes, it's a bit scary. So the thing is, because we don't know how to measure, we don't know how to draw it, and we also don't know what inference to draw from this image and 3x3 POPQ grid. So that is why we are sad about it. So let us discuss all these things one by one. So what is this image? This is a POPQ classification image. Here we can see 3 points on the anterior vaginal wall, 3 points on the posterior vaginal wall, and 3 measurements of different structures. So what are the 3 points on the anterior vaginal wall? That is point A on the anterior vaginal wall, which is depicted as capital A and small a, AA. Point B on the anterior vaginal wall is capital B and small a, that is BA. And point C. These are the 3 points on the anterior vaginal wall. And what are the 3 points on the posterior vaginal wall? Point AB, that is point A on posterior vaginal wall. Point BP, that is point B on the posterior vaginal wall. And point D. So these are the 3 points on the posterior vaginal wall. And what are the other 3 measurements we are taking in the POPQ classification? As given in the image, one is genital hiatus, which is depicted as GH. Other is perineal body, depicted as PB. And the third one is total vaginal length, TVL. So all together, there are 9 things we are going to discuss in detail. Yes. So this is the POPQ grid, 3x3 grid. So in this slide, I am going to give the description of each and everything, and later on I am going to describe in detail each point along with the interference. What interference you are going to draw from it. Sorry, what inference you are going to draw from it. So what is the importance of each measurement and how it is helpful for you, at which level the damage is there. Actually, that is the importance of this grid. By seeing the grid at a glance, you should be able to say at which level the support is lost, at which level there is damage, and what should be done to overcome that. So that is the purpose of the grid actually. It should be helpful in that way. Right. So let us see one by one. So capital A and small a, that is point AA. Point A, how are you going to measure that? From the middle of the external urethral meatus and mark 3 centimeters from the middle of the external urethral meatus, mark 3 centimeters on the anterior vaginal wall. So that point is A A. Actually it is fixed and the range is minus 3 centimeters to plus 3 centimeters. Now the question comes, why is it fixed? Why is it fixed and why is it 3 centimeters? I'll explain you that in my next slide. So the next point is BA. That means point B on anterior vaginal wall. Right. So how are you going to mark point BA? This is the most distal point on the anterior vaginal wall or most dependent point on the anterior vaginal wall. That's it. Right. And point C is, as we all know, it is cervix or the vaginal cuff. Right. So coming to the posterior vaginal wall points, that is point A on posterior vaginal wall, that is AP. AP is also 3 centimeters proximal from hymenal ring on posterior vaginal wall. So this is also a fixed point. This is also fixed and it's 3 centimeter and its range is minus 3 to plus 3. And why is it fixed? What is the reason? I'll explain it in the next slide. So point BP. What is point BP? Point BP is the most distal point on the posterior vaginal wall. Point D. Point D is the posterior vaginal fornix. There is no confusion in this. Right. So we discussed about 3 points on the anterior vaginal wall and 3 points on the posterior vaginal wall. Next, what are other 3 measurements which are important and how and in which way they are important for us? Right. First one is genital hiatus. So how are you going to measure the genital hiatus? It is from the middle of the external urethral meatus to posterior midline of the hymen. So this measurement is important. We should know how to measure it. Then perineal body, PB. So how are you going to measure the perineal body? That is from the posterior midline of the hymen to mid-anal opening. In this way you should measure the perineal body. And we all know the total vaginal length after reducing the prolapse will measure the posterior vaginal wall length. That is the total vaginal length. Right. So this finishes the description of the 3x3 grid of the POCQ classification. Now let us know in detail about each and every point. Right. So in this slide I am going to explain why point AA, that is point A on anterior vaginal wall and point B on posterior vaginal wall are fixed to 3 centimeters. Yes. So point AA, that is point A on anterior vaginal wall, is fixed to 3 centimeters because it represents the length of the urethra. It represents the length of the urethra. Because the length of the urethra is fixed, this point is fixed. It also represents the uretrovesical junction. So it is fixed. Then point AP is also 3 centimeters. Why is it 3 centimeters? Because it represents the length of the rectovaginal septum. Because rectovaginal septum is also has a fixed length. So it is 3 centimeters. Right. So this clears the confusion why these points are fixed. Coming to the next slide. Yes. In this slide, let us talk, excluding the 2 points previously we discussed, all others. So, point BA. So, when we measure in a prolapse patient, if point BA is not minus 3, so why I am talking or why I am taking point BA as minus 3? Because that is the normal value. What I mean is, if the anterior vaginal wall is in normal position, if there is no damage, the point BA value is minus 3. When the normal position, when the anterior vaginal wall is normal, point AA and point BA both are at level at the measurement of minus 3. Both values, both of these points, they have the value of minus 3. Okay, right. If it is not that value, then it means there is a attachment defect. See, previously I explained about the arcus tendinous fascia pelvis. So why I explained about it is because point BA is somehow connected to the arcus tendinous fascia pelvis, right? So here the pubocervical vesical fascia, it gets attached to the arcus tendinous fascia pelvis normally. If there is any problem in this attachment, if there is damage to this, then that is called as attachment defect or level 2 defect. There will be change in the value of BA. Right. Then coming to point C. Point C depicts the suspension defect or level 1 defect. Level 1 in Delancey. I am talking about these levels is the Delancey's levels. That is the reason why I discussed the Delancey's levels after the anatomy of the pelvis, because we should correlate. We can correlate this grid with the Delancey's level so that it will make easy for us to understand the grid. Right. So this finishes the anterior vaginal wall. Coming to the posterior vaginal wall point BP. Point BP on posterior vaginal wall. If there is the value after seeing the value of BP after the measurement in a prolapsed patient, we can say the patient is having level 2 defect or attachment defect. That is defect or damage at arcus tendinous rectovaginalis. Right. And point D is if there is a issues with the point D value, then we can say it is a level 1 defect, because the attachment of the uterosacral, the level 1 defect is also called as suspension defect. Right. So this also clears the posterior vaginal wall. Then genital hiatus. So what inference do we draw from a genital hiatus value? Yes. If there is greater value of the genital hiatus in a multiparous woman, 3.5 up to 3.5 centimeter is a normal value. If it is more than that, like 5 or 4, then we can say there is a damage at levator plate or anococcygeal raffle. So in that way, the genital hiatus value gives idea about it. Then perineal body. So the normal measurement should be within 2 to 4 centimeters. If there is deficient perineum, if it is less than 2 to 4 centimeters, the defect is level 3 defect. It is also called as fusion defect. Right. So POPQ classification also includes the staging. It has stage 0 to stage 4. So after the grid 3x3 grid, you will stage accordingly. And I think there is no need to explain. I just added because the POPQ classification includes the staging criteria. Everyone knows about the criteria, or else you can just read them and just give the staging according to the image. You can just give the staging according to the image. There is no confusion in it. The only confusion arises how to take the grid and what are the inference from the grid. So this is very small lecture. I think it is helpful, and I just try to clarify about the grid, give an idea about the grid specifically. Thank you so much. I hope my video helped you a lot. Thank you.